What's up everybody? This is Connor with KFF Defense. Today I'm doing a much needed video going over all of the features of the Pro Riser Mod 1. So to start, I'll just start out by saying it is a 3/4 inch optics riser that gives you adequate length to be able to run a dot and magnifier combo or dot and laser combo. I've seen a couple people use it for like scopes and stuff too, or like longer optics like an L-can, but the primary purpose when designing this was for dot and magnifiers, but obviously you can use it however you see fit for your needs. So to start, I'll just go over the like surface finish and quality control that goes into this. So as you can tell, it is Class 3 hardcoat anodized. It is laser engraved, done by us in-house. We have tick marks for each individual Picatinny slot, as well as our logo and the torque specs there on the side. And then the other side is just the logo on there. So as far as features and function of the riser go, one of the most immediately noticeable things about this riser is you will notice how much Picatinny rail it actually clamps to. So when designing this, I didn't like how a lot of the competition would have attachment rails that would be about like, you know, an inch or two and might cover like 2 or 3 Picatinny slots. And I was like, you know, the more surface area that it's making contact with, the more sturdy and reliable of a system it would be. So I was like, I really don't know why I wouldn't try and, you know, maximize the amount of space that it's actually clamping without, you know, honestly making it look stupid. It could have just been a straight up rectangle, but you know, I tried to add a little flair to it. So this attachment rail is actually about 2.25 times bigger than basically everyone on the market currently that I could find. So it allows for a much more sturdy platform for your optics setup, which is one of the reasons why it is so durable. So one of the other features that you'll also notice with this riser is the hardware that we use. So again, whenever I was designing this, I just kind of like freaked myself out that it might not hold zero and you know, got worried, and I kind of over-engineered it, and I'm glad I did because it wound up making this riser an absolute tank. So the hardware that we use is much bigger than almost all the competition. I don't know anyone who uses this large of hardware. And the reasoning behind this is because when you see on the underside of the riser where those cross bolts go through, I picked the cross bolts that were the largest possible that I could find that would still fit in between these Picatinny slots. So those cross bolts actually kind of work as recoil lugs whenever mounting this. So it's kind of a dual use item. You know, it provides your clamping force, but also provides forward and aft shift from recoil and things like that. So another feature that you'll notice as well, once I get this other bolt out here, is you will notice that during the machining process, I opted to leave these notched grooves on the underside of the riser there. And the reasoning for that is, again, another one of those things where I was just thinking, you know, the more surface area contact, the better off I'm gonna be for as far as like retaining zero, being a reliable and really sturdy platform. So with these bolts, I was like, you know, I would want as much surface area contact with the underside of the riser there as well. And so I decided to leave those grooves there because, again, it just is a way for the main body of this riser to really kind of lock itself into these bolts. There's just zero room for anything to move, and when you tighten all of this down, what it results in is a very, very sturdy, hardy platform where nothing's really gonna move. But that did not stop me from over-engineering, because here I will demonstrate the kinetic index notch. If you see on this attachment rail here, you will notice that there is a little center point that kind of sticks down there on the attachment rail. And what that is that is meant to interface with this groove that is cut out on the side of the riser main body. And the reasoning behind that was, again, another one of those things where I was like, you know, could be worried about this happening, so I engineered something to prevent it from happening. So this has 5 thousandths tolerance clearance, which what the concern was in the reasoning for this design was because I was scared that this attachment piece would kind of want to shift forward and backwards like that. And I didn't really know. So I just tried to eliminate as many variables during the design process as I could. So as you can see, once this rail goes on, it lines you up with the bolt holes perfectly. And then there is virtually no forward and backward shift. And the last piece that I will tell you about with recoil redundancies is the material that I left around the bolt holes on this side of the riser. You'll notice that there is this groove that the bolts slide into, and there is just enough material to where you cannot forcibly pull that hardware through. It's enough to let it through, but it's also just barely enough to kind of keep it in place as well. So it's again just one of those things where I was like, you know, the minimal slop, the better off you'll be for maintaining and holding your zero. So that is it for the recoil redundancies, and that's really like mostly all of it as far as like, you know, the fitment of the riser. As far as like, I know I kind of touched on the finish, but I just like to specify that these do go through a 10-step quality control process in which I do manually test that anodizing finish hardness for each riser. So I make sure that it's within mil spec and is a class 3 finish with a 55 Mohs hardness or greater on each of those risers. And you will see here included in the box is our quality control checklist. This goes in every single riser box. This is just, you know, just a checkbox for once that particular riser went through that step of the quality control process, we check those boxes, blah, 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 blah. It's a 10-step process where we test the material hardness, which is what I was just mentioning about testing it with a pick to make sure it is correctly anodized. Then I do a material density inspection, which essentially is just measuring the weight of the risers and see if there's any anomalies, to see if perhaps there was like some pitting or some kind of like weird stuff going on in the material, to, you know, just in case like there could be some kind of like air pockets or something, we'd be able to see that with a abnormal weight. And then I do a flatness warp test to make sure it is as planar as possible and within spec. Then I do a Picatinny tolerance test, which is just inspecting the dimensions, making sure that it is within the spec of Mill Standard 1913, so that you will have no issue mounting an optic to it and things like that. The clamping inspection, that is to make sure that it is going to clamp correctly onto whatever rail you put it on, which, you know, would be Picatinny. Visual finish inspection, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure there's no, you know, flaws, defects, things like that. Any chipping of the anodizing, I throw those risers out if they have any of that. And then I do a thread integrity check, which is where I am validating that the threads in the riser are free of burrs and like corrosion, things like that, and the hardware screws in, screws out, no problem, and there is nothing going on with those threads. Then dimensioning, that's essentially just doing, you know, the basic measurement with calipers and making sure everything is within our tolerances. Then the last two are just simple, you know, like making sure that the hardware is in there, and then we clean and coat each riser right before we box it. And then once it passes that quality control steps, we'll write pass fail and then sign off whoever inspected that particular riser. This particular riser was me, so I signed it and threw it in the box. On the back side of this card, you will have your installation instructions. This is how you will install the riser. It is extremely simple to do. You will just, how I always recommend people to do it to ensure you get the best performance out of this is I just evenly, you know, thread them out so they're roughly about the same, and then you can make sure that that kinetic index notch will index correctly. You can push this out, pop it on your Picatinny rail, push that attachment rail back in, and then evenly hand tighten these alternating so that you get a good even press up against there. And then that is when you will use our included Allen wrench that will come in this little crack bag inside the box. And you will see that this Allen key, personally, I think it's awesome. I haven't had a whole lot of people, actually I just broke this bag, I'm gonna have to get another one, but you will see that I actually engrave our logo as well as Pro Riser Mod 1 onto these Allen wrenches, each individually. Is it entirely necessary? No, but in my opinion, I just think it's really cool. And I know I make this joke a lot, but like, I mean, I'm a man and I love having a junk drawer, and I throw every single Allen wrench that I ever get into this junk drawer just because I'm like, well, you know, I don't want to have to fish for whatever size it is. It might be something weird that I don't have in one of my sets, so I just keep it. And I thought the engraving on it would be a good way for you to know exactly what it was for, and honestly just be a little bit of good micro advertising every time you look in your junk drawer. And it just honestly is really aesthetic and cool, so I thought it was a good touch. So that is essentially it, and here is our packaging. I think, I mean, I'm probably pretty biased, obviously, but I think it is like some of the cleanest packaging. It is so beautiful. A good friend of mine actually designed it for me, and I have been in love with it since he first sent it to me. So there's the packaging, and that is what it is included in the box. And that is basically a pretty quick rundown on the features of the Pro Riser Mod 1. You won't find a more durable optics riser on the market, honestly. I would be hard pressed to believe that any riser on the market could outlast this thing, because it is a beast. I'm so confident in that statement, in fact, that I actually made my testing and evaluation results public on my website. You can just Google KFF Pro Riser Mod 1 T&E results, and I have my full scientific write-up on when I did my first initial testing of this riser. I plan on doing more tests in the future to, you know, just kind of future like drive home how much of a tank it is. But I'll be honest, I'm not in the market to be breaking a bunch of stuff off of my personal AR like I did on the first test. When doing the drop test with this riser to make sure it didn't lose zero or anything like that, I did snap off my weapon mounted light off my personal gun and had to order parts to get that fixed. But good news was the riser held zero, so I was beyond proud of that. And a lot of that has to do with the EOTech that I have on it as well. But obviously the weakest link of a chain is going to be your failure point, and it was not the riser in that case. So that is my quick little autistic rant over the Pro Riser Mod 1. I'm sure I might have forgot a couple of questions, but I will be down in the comments and be willing to answer any questions you might have. So if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to check it out, give it a try, and let me know what you think. Thanks.